Hello and welcome to Living in Chicago, the podcast where I get to interview real Chicagoans about the neighborhoods that they live, work, and play in. My name is Jake Lyons. I'm your host. And in this episode, I interview Drew Tilton, who is an author, a ghostwriter, a writing and publishing coach, and is a very new father. So, congratulations to Drew whenever you get a chance to listen or watch this. Drew is a resident of the River West neighborhood, which is a just hilariously small little sliver of a neighborhood it's technically under the umbrella of West Town, which is a huge area, which also includes areas like, Ukrainian Village, Bucktown, Wicker Park, places like that, which we get into in this episode. But the River West specific neighborhood is like I said, just a little sliver of a neighborhood between Ohio Street and Chicago Avenue from the north and south, and then between the river, just west of the river, hence the name, out to the highway, basically. So just a little bit west of Milwaukee Avenue. So not a big area at all, but some high rises. It's very dense, and there's still they pack a lot into that little area. So that's what we get into in this episode is what it's like to live in the River West area and the broader area around it. You have River North right across the river from you. Just to the south, you have the West Loop and all the things that there are to do there, and all the rest of West Town to the west. So it's a very well positioned area for a lot of different reasons. But those are things that you'll just have to listen to Drew Tilton because he's the expert. So without further ado, let's hear from Drew about what it's like to live in the River West neighborhood of Chicago. All right. Well, hey, I am joined here today by Drew Tilton. He is a resident of the River West neighborhood of Chicago and is a writer, a ghostwriter, a writer of his own material, a writing coach, all things having to do with writing and making content that people read. Is that's
That's
Drew's.
it. Content that people read. Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
hopefully they read it.
hopefully that's the idea. Yeah,
Content that people could read.
yeah, for sure. At least that.
Yeah.
Drew, hey, how are you?
I'm doing well. Doing well. Thanks for having me, Jake. This is fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's just go ahead and get right into the old life story. So you are a little bit of an anomaly in terms of who I've had on, at least so far, and people that I even just know in my life. In that, so here in Chicago, you get maybe 10% of people that you meet are actually from the city of Chicago. And then you get a
Sure.
bunch
Totally.
more people who are from like the suburbs, and they come here and do their like, oh, I'm in my 20s and 30s. I guess I'll do the city life before moving right back to the
Right.
suburbs. Then you get
Right.
a lot of that. You get a lot of people from like Wisconsin. You get a lot of people from a lot of people from Michigan.
Yeah.
Couple people from Indiana here and
Iowa.
there. I would be in there. Yeah. Yep. A lot
Yeah.
of Iowa. Just Midwest. That makes
Midwest.
sense.
Yeah.
Like,
It's kind of this
there-
hub, where it's
yeah,
like get the big city life, but don't leave the Midwest sort of thing.
exactly. Yeah. And then even, rarer, but you still do get them. You get the people from like the East Coast that, maybe they went to New York because of the big city job, and then their company transferred them to Chicago, whatever. You see a
Mm-hmm.
lot of that. You're from LA, and you don't meet many people in Chicago who came here from Southern California. It's just not a thing that people seem to do. So I'm just
Yeah.
curious to start there and to see what all went into that decision and life choice.
No, I'm racking my mind right now. I'm trying to think of other people I've met from Southern California that live here. There are one or two that come to mind, but no, really very few and far between. And most people were like, "Oh, we went to California from Chicago and then came back," or something like that. Um,
Yeah.
we came here because my wife was at the time finishing her degree in psychology, and there's an internship placement involved in that for a doctorate. And she came, uh, she had gotten placed here in Chicago, and actually in the suburbs. But we were like, well, if we're going to go to Chicago, we want to live in Chicago. We don't want to go to live in the suburbs of Chicago. So That's what really brought us out here. But we chose that. Marissa, when looking at my wife, when looking at different sites that she could potentially, there's like this whole ranking system, and you pick certain sites, and this Chicago site was at the top of her list because of a lot of reasons to do with the site itself, but also because the city of Chicago really interested us, and it had always been on our list. We had never visited before we found out we were placed here, so we had, neither of us had ever been here. Um, and then we decided that we were going to move here. But it just had interested us in a lot of ways. I think being a big city, but not being New York, like New York one is just massive to another degree that Chicago just isn't.
Mhm. Just
But
the
two, just
density of it.
yeah, and then just two, the price. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
obviously New York is, I think, the most expensive place to live in all of America, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe San
Yeah,
Francisco,
them San Francisco's in there.
somewhere
I don't
in
know.
there. But Chicago is actually very reasonable as far as city living goes. Like when you compare different cities across the United States, Chicago is not crazy price, especially coming from Southern California, where, rents are essentially like double, what you would pay. Um, and what you would pay here in Chicago. So for us, it was kind of an interesting thing because we were moving into the city, but we were saving money on rent. So that was
Mhm.
actually a really cool thing. And um, like moving to a place that you've never been, it's not even like we had visited and fallen in love with the city or something. We just had a good feeling about it and had heard really cool things, and um, from other people. And so we were kind of like, well, that could be really cool. And it's a different place. We were, at that stage in our lives. We've been here now for almost 3 years. And as Marissa was finishing up her degree, I think it was a time for us to really feel like we could go out and explore. We had this freedom that we hadn't had throughout our marriage. For we probably could have moved, but for various reasons, we were locked into where we were, and we were in this season where I had, in a lot of ways, just started my writing career, working for myself, rather than working for an organization, and we had a level of freedom that we like. Well, what if we went and lived somewhere else and tried something different and did something different? And that's really what led us into the move, and we've been really, really pleased with it.
Yeah. Nice. And that was what, 2 years ago? 2 or 3?
Summer of 2021, so we're coming up
Okay.
on 3 years. It'll be 3 years in the summer, this summer. So we're 2.5 years.
Mhm. Okay.
So we
So
stayed.
what
Marissa's internship was
Yeah.
only a year long, and we decided we wanted to stay longer, and, um,
Mhm.
initially we were like, well, let's just go for a year. And that led us into um, coming here, but it really, we fell in love with the city. We really did once we moved here. And I think so much of that has to do with the friend group that we made once we got here. But in a lot of ways it has to do with this place and the balance of size and things to do and interesting things going on, with also not, I never feel overwhelmed by Chicago. And maybe that's a product of where I'm from, is a very crowded place in and of itself, Southern California. Um,
Mhm.
but a very different place to Chicago as well. And so it never feels overwhelming to me, but it does feel interesting to me and different to me. And where, LA is so spread out, where
Right.
Chicago is very condensed in comparison, with so many great things going on in these neighborhoods that you're kind of doing this series. It's all these neighborhoods are so interwoven and intermixed among each other. And, I think maybe if you're coming from a context like where I'm coming from, where a neighborhood, LA is just like, it's spread out. Like you almost wouldn't describe things in neighborhoods, you describe things in cities,
Mhm.
but here it really is like this really concentrated area of tons of neighborhoods just all butting up against each other in a really cool and exciting way. Because so where I am in River West, and just stop me, I'm just talking, I don't know,
Go. No,
but
perfect. This is
yeah,
great.
where we're at in River West, we're in this really cool place, where we're along what's called the Blue Line. So if you're not familiar with Chicago, there's a elevated train. It's called the L, but the Blue Line's actually a subway, which is funny. But the Blue Line runs all the way to
Hmm.
O'Hare, and it runs along this street called Milwaukee, pretty much the whole way. And
Hmm. At least
um,
where you are, it's a subway. It is elevated in some parts of it, but
That's
yeah, where
true.
you
Yeah,
are, you
yeah.
don't
It
see
jumps
it.
up
Yeah.
above the ground at a certain point.
Hmm.
But yeah, where we are, it's a subway. Um, but anyway, we're one or two stops from the Loop, which is kind of downtown area, which is becoming cooler and cooler all the time. It used to be, as I understand, it used to be more just where people went and had their jobs and stuff, which I think there still are a ton of jobs, but more and more there's resident living down there, and it's there's a lot of cool stuff down there. But then we're also up near these really unique neighborhoods like Wicker Park, or uh what is it, um brick something. Anyway, there's just
Is
all
that
these
called?
great Logan
Yeah.
Square, and then as you go up Milwaukee, there's these great neighborhoods all the way up to where you live, Jake.
Hmm.
And uh we're kind of at the very start of that. So if you imagine the city center, and then Milwaukee running northwest from that, all along there's these great neighborhoods, and we're kind of that first neighborhood, River West, that comes out of
Hmm.
there. Um, and it's been such a perfect neighborhood. I think in a lot of ways I love this neighborhood. It's really small, but it's kind of like tucked in here between uh what's called West Town and River North, and it's kind of like in this, above all these really cool neighborhoods, but nobody really knows about River West. I think it's kind of this like little gem, and I kind of like it for that. There's not necessarily all this like really trendy restaurants or stuff right here, which is nice because the only people that really get off at our stop, or drive, or stop here, are people that live here. While at the same time being so close to all these great neighborhoods with all these great restaurants, these great things to do. Um, we're so close to the river and downtown, and there's this brand new concert venue just north of us called the Salt Shed that just went in. There's we're, as I mentioned, we're right by Wicker Park, right by Bricktown, whatever that place is called. But these really cool neighborhoods.
Time for the Real Estate Stats Corner, presented by me, Jake Lyons, real estate advisor here in the Chicago area with At Properties and my website, thechicagohomesource.com. Information provided here is courtesy of InfoSparks and Rentometer, respectively. In this segment, I am going to give you two statistics about the real estate prices in the River West neighborhood that I believe will give you at least a good general idea of what those prices are looking like and what people are paying to live in the River West neighborhood. I think that real estate, without real estate, what even really is a neighborhood? So I might be a little bit biased being a real estate agent, but I think real estate prices are super relevant to any conversation about any neighborhood. So with that being said, let's get into it. The two statistics that I am going to put out there are the median sales price for two-bed condos in the River West neighborhood as of January of 2024, the most recent data that I have access to. So if you're listening to this any later than that, it's going to be different. These things change all the time. So median sales price of two-bed condos, and then also the median rental price for two-bed apartments. Normally, if you've listened to some other episodes, I will also do the median sales price for single-family detached homes, but this being River West, and I want to keep this as specific to River West as possible, there are pretty much zero actual houses in this neighborhood. It's all condos. There's been like one single family house sale in the last year or two, so not relevant, not a big sample size to go off of. So, that all being said, the median sales price as of January 2024 in River West for a two-bed condo is coming to $489,000. And if you want to rent a two-bed apartment in the River West neighborhood, the median monthly rental price is coming out to, we can go ahead and round that up to $3,300 per month. So there you have it. There's obviously way more variables involved than just the median sales price. There's all kinds of different variables, and we can get into the weeds in that if, on that if you want to. But in the meantime, if you want to see what all is available in the West Town area, the River West area, or anywhere in the Chicago area for that matter, you can go to thechicagohomesource.com. The link for that will be in the show notes. Yeah, of
We're
course, Bucktown.
we're
Yeah,
our
you have
friends.
Bucktown and Ukrainian Village, Wicker Park, Logan
Totally, yeah.
Square, even like Irving Park, Jefferson Park. Those are,
Yeah.
getting cooler by the day as you go up Milwaukee, like you're talking about. But yeah, you're right, man. You really are in the first, like the first wave of, there on the blue line is you're in a prime
Yeah.
spot right there in terms of getting to those neighborhoods. Because yeah, I mean Wicker Park alone is like just such a cool area, and
Oh my gosh, yeah.
yeah, stuff like that. But yeah, to go back. I mean, yeah, but I do picture Chicago as being more dense than LA. Just in my like week that I've spent in LA, it didn't seem like LA
Yeah.
was. I was like,
Which I don't know if
how
that's
did they even
true,
call
but
this one city?
oh, it's I
It's a
mean,
I know it's a county first of all, but
yeah,
yeah, the
if you say
whole
you're from LA,
how.
you're probably and I'm not even from LA, like, I'm not even from LA County, like, it just is
Okay.
easier to tell people, "I'm from LA," because that's the only thing they've ever heard of in Southern California, but,
Yeah.
I'm from, an hour inland from LA, from the beach, really,
Right.
and so I'm in a different county, but, that said, it's just is like LA is just this web of cities and counties that just kind of
Hmm.
bleed out, and then San Diego kind of comes up and meets it, and so it's just a very different context to
Yeah.
being here in Chicago without it being, like I said, without it being so overwhelming. Yeah, so
Right.
I really like that.
Yeah, I mean the density is such that our neighborhoods really are kind of like those cities. Like think of like I did an episode on Humboldt Park, and I think Humboldt Park has like 60,000 people live in Humboldt Park. Like that's a city,
Right.
you know?
Totally. Yeah. No. In
Yeah,
other places, that's a city, but it's just this,
yeah,
it's like whatever Humboldt Park is. Like, I mean, you know, some square miles of just people just packed in there, but it in a cool
hmm,
way. And it's like each area has this unique feel to it. And I think there's just so many cool new, I mean, they're not new neighborhoods, but they're, as you mentioned, like neighborhoods where essentially this is how it works, right? People go from like they move into one neighborhood, make it cool, and then they're like, we priced ourselves out. Let's move to the next
hmm,
neighborhood. And so it's like getting into those neighborhoods as they're growing and becoming so these new hit cool spots. I think it just
yep,
drives your property value up, probably. I mean, would be my guess. But um I think all those things really have attracted us here to Chicago to stay, and we're always holding loosely like, okay, are we going back to California? We're getting ready to have a baby. And so we would, move back to California for family, but really, like, and this is nothing against California. We love California, but there's just so many more options for us here in Chicago financially, to still live in a really awesome place, but to have a level of just financial freedom that in California would just be a lot harder for us. Like for instance, my business, in California, we couldn't live off what I'm making from my business. I would have to go back and work for somebody, which, it wouldn't be the end of the world or anything. And then that may happen. But here I have the freedom to do that. And as we're here, I mean, we're days away from our due date, starting a
yeah,
family here in Chicago. And I think with that, it just gives me like a sense of that in this season, at least when we're going to have an infant here, I have unlimited flexibility to support my wife as she recovers from birth, which I hear is a very intense process. And
I have like
yeah,
5 friends who just had a baby within the last 2
yeah,
months, so I've been, yeah, hearing all the stories of recovery and
right.
all this stuff, and it's just like, man,
It's a
it's
lot,
so
man.
much. Yeah.
And if I was working, at let's say a publisher or something along those lines, I don't know that I would have that level of flexibility. I mean, obviously you would hope some publishers would give you some time off. Some jobs I think do that, but it's not like this given thing out in the corporate world or something.
Right. Can you
That
negotiate like retroactive paternity leave? You know?
right. Yeah. Would you pay me for the time that I took off? Anyway, all that to
Yeah.
say though, like because we live in Chicago, I'm able to keep freelancing and that enables us to have this level of flexibility in a season of life that it's really, really important to us to have that flexibility and really important to our family and to me being involved in this very in so many ways very condensed season of my daughter's life, but a season nonetheless that is very I mean, by this time next year, I'm gonna have a daughter crawling, maybe walking, around this place. And so it's like there's so much that goes into this first year of birth and or of having a child. And so I think just having that level of flexibility here financially, and again, I mean, this is going to be perspective for some people. Perhaps you're coming from an area where it's much less expensive than Chicago. So I just want to acknowledge that. But in comparison for us, that's meant a lot. That's meant a lot to be a big city that's affordable. And it
Mhm.
truly is affordable. It's not like it's I don't mean to say it's cheap, but I do mean to say in comparison to other places, it's very affordable. Um,
Yes.
and that's been huge for us and given us just options, and to top it all off, it's an amazing place to live. It's a fun place to live. It's like, summers in Chicago. I mean, summertime shy, they talk about that.
Yeah,
Like,
man. Oh, yeah.
it is so fun. And the city comes alive in a way that, Californians were just so spoiled. We never think of the summer. I mean, we love the summer,
Mhm.
but it's just like, we get good weather all the time. But here
Yeah.
it's like, just like we're gonna come alive here in a few months. And
If anything, the
so
summers in LA might be kind of oppressive. It just starts getting too hot and, things like that. Maybe, I
some
don't know,
parts of LA
maybe
for
not.
sure. If you live on the beach, but
Yeah.
who can
Yeah.
afford to live on the beach? So,
I've
um,
only ever I've been to LA once. It was for a week, but it was like in the middle of February. So kind of a weird
yeah,
time to get there. Like it would be kind of nice during the day, but then like it would get kind of chilly and, whatever. But
yeah. I mean, comparatively though, it's like nothing. I mean,
sure.
it'll
Still,
get
yeah.
it'll get maybe into the high 50s, and you'll be like, "Whoa!" Like if it was the high
Hmm.
50s right now for us, we'd be in t-shirts outside enjoying the nice weather. So, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
But anyway,
But yeah, I do, as a real estate agent, I do love working with people from from California and New York and some of these other places because they look at the prices here and it's just like, wow, I can't believe how cheap this is.
oh
This
yeah,
luxury apartment's only $6,000 a month. Like this would be
right.
20,000 in New York.
Totally,
It's
and
just like,
and
yeah,
that's
so cheap.
true, like, I mean, it really is all relative, and so for some people that are watching this, they'll probably be like, "This guy's an idiot, like, what does he know?" But I think there is,
Hmm.
like, this group of people like me and like my wife who are coming from these really expensive places to live, and we're struggling to live there and to make a living there, because those places just are unrealistic. I mean, you need to be making hundreds of thousands of dollars, to even afford to buy a home there, like,
Hmm.
a year. And it's just as like, but then the jobs aren't paying that at the same time. Like, so I think this kind of problem is popping up in areas like where we're from, but all over the country. Like, I think of our my cousin used to live in Seattle. Like that's another
Mhm.
place that's like that.
Super expensive, yeah.
Super expensive. And like I think there's places like that with highly condensed groups of people. Like it's a lot of people that are coming from those places and they're looking for new places to be, not because they don't love those places, but really because it's just we've been priced out, and it's like trying to make a living. And so we've found Chicago to be this really great refuge in a way for us, while we're figuring out our futures and very much don't have it figured out. And but this is a fun place to be. It's a cool place to be. It's a place where we feel very ingrained in our community and connected to our friends. Um, while at the same time, a place where, at least for now, we want to start our family, and we'll see where we go, in the future, obviously starting a family with how long
Mhm.
do we want to be away from parents and even as our parents age and do we want to be closer to them for that. But I think for now, we're very happy with where we are. And I think we always say, like, if our families were here, we know we would for sure stay. Like, without a doubt,
Mhm.
like we would stay because, the stuff that draws you back to California outside of being from there is, of course, the weather. But it's
Outside of
just,
the fact that it's literally -9 degrees right now as we're
right.
having this
It's
conversation. Yeah.
for a
Well, actually,
week,
no, it's 9 degrees. Actually, it went up. It was -9 yesterday. It's a full
Yes.
9 now. So it
Today,
went
it's
up
it's a big
20.
swing, big swing. I
It
went
it
outside today
really
and I was
is.
like, I was salting my stairs and I was like, "Oh, I don't even have to zip up my jacket." Like, it's funny how
Yeah.
you adapt. Like, I thought we would just be, like we go to California now, it's 60 degrees out and we're laying outside sunbathing. It
Yep.
really is that way. Like your body adjusts. But
Mhm.
and I think that's obviously there's hard aspects to living in Chicago in comparison. I think there are the weather is a thing, like it's different. But we also love the weather, being from a place that doesn't really have seasons, it gets colder, but it's kind of like it's summer, it transitions slightly out of summer, then transitions slightly back into summer, then it's summer again. Like that's kind of what it feels like. The trees get brown because it's a drought and there's no water. Like, they don't get brown because of the fall. Like,
Mhm.
um, so we actually really, really love the seasons here. The fall is so beautiful. It's still very,
Mhm.
very nice out. The weather, as long as you got good coats and jackets, you're doing fine. Christmas is beautiful here, especially we didn't get snow this year, but last year we got a great snow right before Christmas. It was beautiful. They put lights up all over the city. It's a beautiful place. And then January, everybody will tell you January through April can be tough at times, like it's cold.
Mhm.
Um, but none of it outweighs the benefits for us. I think we have grown to appreciate the weather changes, the seasons. You also realize how 30 degrees isn't as cold as you thought it was. And, there's a lot that you can do outside still. Like I go
Mhm.
for walks all the time and obviously I won't go for a walk today or yesterday or anything,
No,
that's
yeah, it's
but this is
legitimately
like
dangerous.
but we're talking about like a couple days or a couple weeks a
Yeah.
year, that where it's to that
Yep.
point of cold. And then the rest is really just like, it's beautiful. Honestly, I mean, a fresh snow in Chicago is incredible, especially here in
Mhm.
River West. We have this great church, like I don't know when it's from or anything. I don't know anything about it to be honest, but it's this beautiful church. We hear the bells from our house here. It gets covered in snow. They have this great yard here. It's just it can be a really beautiful place. It's a really clean city too, like comparative to like New York.
Of
No
course, yeah.
offense to New York. I feel like I'm shitting on New York, but I
No,
don't.
this is a situation.
I don't
There's
mean
nobody
to.
from New York who's gonna hear that and be like, "No way,
Yeah,
we're so clean."
we're so
I
clean.
haven't
Yeah.
I
So
haven't seen gum on the sidewalk in almost 3 seconds. But,
yeah, so
no.
I don't mean that in any judgment. I'm just saying like compared to LA even, LA I mean is not a clean place by any stretch and it feels very clean here. I know Chicago gets a bad rap about crime and stuff like that, but that's really worked down into mostly some select neighborhoods for the most part. I mean, if you try to find where the crime's going on, you can find it through these like websites that sometimes my wife will get like hooked on, like neighborhood app and whatever. You'll hear
Oh
about it.
yeah,
Stuff happens. It's a big city, but when you really look at the crime rates per capita, it's not even close to some of the other places in America, and Chicago gets a bad rap for probably some
totally.
weird political reasons and stuff. But
Yep.
to be honest, we feel safe here a lot. You obviously it's a city, so you got to be aware, and but our neighborhood in particular, I think because we don't have as much um stuff here like in River West. Like there's not like all these cool I mean, we have our local places. We have a great pizza joint down the street that has a great deal. Me and Jake just went there last week. Has
We
great
sure did.
deals. I've got my favorite coffee shop just a 2-minute walk away. um
Let's
but
let's drop
I
some names. Let's drop some
Yeah,
names. I'll
Big
put them in the show
Shoulders.
notes.
Big Shoulders. Yeah,
Yeah.
Big Shoulders, River West. I think they have a couple more locations, but I've only been to this
Hmm.
one and it's my favorite. I mean, the windows in there are incredible. I go and work there a lot. Working for myself, I'm always looking for a place to mix things up. And so Big Shoulders is a great one. D'Agostino's also has a couple other locations, but there's one right here in River West and it's awesome. They have a great Wednesday pizza deal. You get like large pizza for half off. And it's like cheap beer and if I don't know, whatever you want. So
Hmm.
they have salads too. So
Yeah.
I mean they're like mom and pop.
Allegedly.
Yeah, yeah. They're mom and pop feeling places. They're not like I don't know. It's not like the hipsters are flocking to River West to go to D'Agostino's, but like for
Hmm.
us, we love living here and we love having a local spot that we can go to. There's a few bars here that we really like. There is the Matchbox is right over here. Is a little local bar. Um, there's Dandy Crown, which actually is kind of hipstery. Um, but they're a very cool place, and they're right here. There's a new tiki bar that we've been to once that's kind of cool, and then in the back they have a speakeasy that's a old L train, so that's pretty cool if you wanted to come and adventure out in River West, but I kind of don't want you to. I kind of want this place to say its little hidden
Hmm.
self and be the best place for people who live here. Because it really is. It's such a cool. I mean, we live in this really cool like little couple blocks of homes and there's lots of kids that live here. Right across the way in particular, there's these I don't even know, townhomes, I guess. Um, and there's tons of kids that live in that, tons of families. And like we dream of one day owning one of those places. It
Hmm.
would be awesome. Um, but really it's just a really cool place to live and we enjoy it a lot. And yeah, I forget why we got in that train of me talking about the restaurants, but
Have you been to the Bluebell Mart?
Bluebell Mart.
The
No, what is it?
Bluebell Mart. It's just like this little convenience store bodega thing on it's just down the street from you. It's on Milwaukee. It's on Milwaukee and Morgan. So it's like right
In
around the
Morgan.
street, right around the corner from that big grocery store right there.
Yeah, yeah, well, it's not Urban
Or,
Market
or,
anymore. Gangnam. I think that they just
oh,
went through new ownership. It's actually really
uh,
cool market too. Well, I haven't been to that bodega. I want to send me that because I want to go check it
yeah.
out.
So here's why I bring up the bodega. You go in there and it's just like, it's a bodega. They're selling
Sure.
whatever, like chips and drinks and like
Yeah.
bongs and just whatever they feel like they can sell to people. But they have like the best sandwiches. And it's
Really?
just yes, man. I promise you. Like they just have like a little you wouldn't
Yeah.
even know that they make sandwiches there, but you go up to like the front the counter and there's just like a little nothing like page to the left. Like if you didn't know you would miss it 1,000 times out of 1,000. And but that's their menu. And they just have like wraps and just basic stuff, it's wraps and sandwiches and
Yeah.
stuff. But dude, they do a really like phenomenal job with them. And they're like $8, $9, something like that. Like
That's
that's
awesome.
not that's not nothing, but for Chicago in that area, like you're
Wow.
expecting to spend $16 on a wrap
$8,
wherever you go.
$9 is
So
actually what lunch
yeah,
costs now for the most part. I
yeah,
mean, I don't know.
that's the 2024 version of the $5 foot long is like
Yeah,
$9.
exactly. Like
Yeah.
you can't, I mean, finding a $5 lunch these days, I can't imagine. I wish.
You wouldn't even trust it if you did find it.
Yeah, you're like, ah, this place sucks.
There's no way this is above board. Like this is like dog meat. But
Yeah. Well, no, that market sounds awesome. So Jake actually works down the street from where we live. So
yep.
you know this neighborhood pretty well too. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah, I've
yeah,
walked down there a few times.
yeah.
I didn't know that the urban market changed though. I was when I was
Yeah,
looking up
they
this
they changed
convenience store, I
ownership.
saw that.
I think it still pops up as the urban market. Essentially, it's just a great
It
market
doesn't.
to get. It doesn't. Oh, Gangnam
It doesn't.
is
Yeah, it's on.
yeah, like
Yep.
Gangnam style, like, but it's called
Yeah.
Gangnam Market, I think. And
Uh-huh.
they have this whole like little food court in there too, like on top of it.
Mhm.
So it's great for us because it's like we still do most of our shopping at Jewel or Trader Joe's or something because they have more
Mhm.
specialty things and they don't have everything. But it's perfect for us when we just need something quick and I don't feel like jumping in the car and I can just, it's a 2-minute walk from where we live. And I just walk over and I can get an onion, I can get, some milk, I can get,
Yeah.
like some chips that my pregnant wife is craving, whatever, like it's super easy in that way and you're not paying like convenience store prices, so we're really not in
Yeah.
a food desert, which can be a thing here in Chicago, depending on where you
Oh,
live.
yeah.
You can live kind of far away from a good market. And so
It's true.
we
South
have a great
side, west side, that's a big problem.
yeah, yeah, totally, totally. Not really the areas that we've talked about today, but in
Right.
some of those areas, but we're really thankful, we have a place that's in walking distance that we can go to, because sometimes it's just inconvenient to drive in Chicago depending on what time it is and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So, which is another great thing about Chicago that we love is that it's very accessible getting around. Um sorry, my cat's scratching at the door. But getting around on the
I didn't
public
hear it.
transport and stuff like is very accessible depending on where you are. The further out you get from the center, the less, accessible it can be. But getting
Yeah.
around down where I am, getting around on the bus, getting around on the L, like is so easy. And you
Well,
can
and
get to most
car,
places.
you're right by the
And car,
highway.
yeah.
You're
Yeah,
like a football
totally.
field away from the highway, so that's,
Yeah,
pretty and
exactly.
Milwaukee, you can get, Milwaukee's it's not a big street, like it's a 2-lane street, but it's an
Totally.
important street.
It is, and it runs all the way down into the heart, of
Yep.
Chicago and then runs all the way out, to I mean, I don't know where Milwaukee ends really. I would assume it goes basically all the way to O'Hare.
It
Um,
goes way past that. It's like
yeah.
I've driven in I've been like pretty much near like the Wisconsin border and you still
Wow.
see like I think it goes through like some name changes along the way, but
Sure,
it's still
sure,
like the
sure.
same, the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, this
It's yeah.
continuous street that runs from the heart of downtown Chicago all the way to Alaska.
Might go to Milwaukee for all I know. Might actually go to Milwaukee.
It might.
I've never
It
tracked
kind
it
of
that
feels
far. I
like
think
it's
it
going
goes.
the wrong
It's
direction,
it
but
does. It does. Yeah. But we don't know.
yeah.
We don't know what it does up there. But somebody out there can look that up and let me know.
Yeah. Anyway,
You know, I wanted to go back a little bit to where you were talking about um the friends and community that you've made. And full disclosure, I am one of those. This isn't going
yes,
to be like
yes.
so Drew, tell me about how good of a friend I am.
Man,
But
I have this great
um
friend named Jake.
yeah. But that's probably something I'd say it's fair to say that whether they are consciously thinking of it or not, probably something that is going to be a potential hurdle for somebody making a move to any new place, but especially
Yeah,
a city that seems as hustle and bustle and from the outside might just seem cold, literally and figuratively, but more figuratively in this case. um that how am I going to find friends, how am I going to find my people, my
yeah,
community, and things like that. And the personality difference, to how outgoing are you, things like that. Obviously there's lots of
totally.
variables here, but I mean, what would you say about how that has gone for you guys?
It's gone great. And here's what I would say. Obviously, there's so many generalities that we could jump into, but really what I would say is communities here if you're intentional and you want to find it, you can. It may take time. You may like anywhere else, you got to go through certain ways of being intentional. But I think what makes Chicago a really cool place is it's a really good mix of people who have transplanted here and people who are from here, kind of like what you alluded
Hmm.
to. A lot of people from the suburbs, but then a lot of people from all over the country and even the
Hmm.
world. Um,
Definitely the
come,
world. Yeah.
yeah, totally. Come to live
Hmm.
in Chicago. And I think what that communicates is that there's a lot of people that are going to be just like you looking for community. And that's true. I mean, me and Jake, you and I came together in so many ways because we were both in these spaces where we were intentionally seeking community, through our church. But I think there's other ways to intentionally seek community, and when you intentionally seek community, you'll find other people who are intentionally seeking community. And I think that's what's cool about Chicago is that it is that kind of place, where people are here intentionally seeking community. And if you do likewise, you'll actually be able to find those people. And there's lots of ways to do that, obviously, and I won't go into those, but I would just say that we've found that plenty of people here are also looking for community, and maybe in comparison to the only thing I can compare it to is Southern California. Or no, I lived in London too. But in comparison to Southern California, because everything is more walkable. It's good public transit. There's people are kind of driven outside and driven into togetherness, not in just their little compartment cars that they drive around and then they, park and then a lot of people, no matter where you go, there's going to be people moving from other places. But I just find Chicago has a lot of people hungry for community if you look for them. And if you're one of those people as well, I think it's a matter of putting yourself out there in the right spaces. And so we've found a wonderful community and we feel very blessed by that community. But um, I think there's, no matter your journey, no matter your story, there's great ways to find people here in Chicago.
Hmm. Yeah. Good answer. And even just the Midwest thing. So I mean, you hear about I'm born, I'm from Indianapolis originally, which is still obviously super Midwest. So I
Yeah.
haven't spent like significant time outside of the Midwest. It's all I know from that point of view. But I hear people say all the time like Midwest nice is a thing, or
Yeah,
the
I don't
people
know
are just a
about
little
that. I mean,
different or
that
whatever.
doesn't
Yeah, I don't know.
stand
What do you
out to me as much
Okay.
as, what maybe other places might feel that way. I've always found California to be a friendly place. Granted, I'm from there, so maybe people not from there don't feel that, but I think it's less that for me and more what I mentioned before. And, because I mean, this was true in London. Like even though people come across very cold, especially in comparison to Chicago, I lived in London for a year and made some great friends, but it was less, that was just the surface level conversational stuff anyway, so it,
Hmm.
I think, yeah, you're going to find people that are warm, that are inviting, that are welcoming here. And I think part of that's cultural, but a lot of that is just, I think, finding the right people, and I think no matter where you go, there's going to be good people that you like, people that you don't like, or people that you don't connect with, people that you do. And it's a matter of being intentional more than it's a product of culture, because no matter where we go, we're going to need friends and community and people, and we all need that. And so it's just a matter of maybe, breaking through a few cultural differences and barriers. Obviously, if you're from the United States, that's going to be less so no matter where you're from these days, I think. But, if you're from a different country, certainly there'd be some cultural challenges and shifts and changes. But I found, which I'm sure people would describe California and Chicago as pretty radically different places, and I've found um, people in both places where it's like there's really great people here, and
Mhm.
there's really great people in California, and I think it's a matter of being intentional and a little bit trying to crack the code of the city and the culture. But at the end of the day, once you get past that, we're all people and we're all longing for community and connection. And so, yeah. So I guess that's a long answer short. I don't notice the Midwest hospitality being making a huge difference as much as I notice there being good people here who are
Mhm.
thirsting for community. Yeah.
Gotcha. How would you say Chicago and or your neighborhood specifically has impacted your professional and creative endeavors? Talked about the
Um,
financial aspect of it kind of freeing you up to do that to begin with, but, even a level more than that, if there is any.
I mean, I'd say that it's a really creative place, like a lot of big cities, a lot of it draws in a lot of creative people. And I think for my industry, obviously most of my work's online. So it's not as though I'm like um making tons of business deals out here in Chicago or something. But I think, for those in creative professions, like it's a great place in so many ways because it draws in a lot of other creatives that you can build off of. Also people who are drawn to the creative arts even if they're not themselves actively involved in them as creators. I think those people are very drawn to Chicago for that reason, where it can be a city that provides a lot of really good opportunities and connections with the creative arts. In particular, the influence on me has just been, I mean, it's an inspiring place. I think it's an interesting place, particularly in writing. You're continually, I think no matter where you are, there's something to write about because writing is really about honesty. And I think all art is really about honesty. But I think, there is a level of interest, like having interesting ways of conveying the thing that you're trying to say, the thing you're trying to communicate through your art. And so I think there's a lot of that here in Chicago. To not be too fluffy about it. Sorry if I'm getting a little too ethereal and artistic, but um, there's a lot about Chicago that's inspiring, that's exciting. Also being a hub, you meet a lot of different people from a lot of different places, which creates and generates inspiration, generates empathy and connection with other people, other cultures, other places, other ways of life, which I think are all important to the creative arts. And so that in and of itself is um, yeah, I think that's pretty cool. And then, just as being a place to go and sit at a coffee shop in front of the river. And, I'm not too far from a place called Blue Bottle Cafe, which I think they have other places, but they have this great spot along the river, right where the river turns. And I sit there. They have these big windows and I look out at the, Chicago skyline along the river there, which is, if you've been to Chicago, is one of the most beautiful scenes in Chicago, in my opinion. And I just sit there and I work, and it's a beautiful place to work. I mean, whether it's inspiring or not, I just like working there. So as a creative with this medium that I can pack up in my laptop and take anywhere, um, I love having Chicago at my fingertips, and going and exploring and being able to find those places. So for people, even people that aren't necessarily doing creative arts, but have a level of flexibility with their job where they can go and work from anywhere, I think it's a really fun place to be because there is just so much. You can get down to the lake, you can go along the river, you can go to these different neighborhoods. There's so many cool coffee shops all over the place, which I'm
Mhm.
like I love coffee and I love coffee shops and cool spaces to work and just break me out of my, norm of, being because I work from home all the time. So and there's not a lot of connection during my day-to-day job. So it's like, oh, I just like to go
Right.
out and be around people. And So I love that about Chicago. So that in particular, maybe beyond just the creative art form piece, but to the practicality of just having, where I live, I really do have Chicago at my fingertips, it feels like, and I
You
can
do.
get anywhere
Yeah.
really quick, and I could work from wherever I want, in the city, and get to explore all these cool neighborhoods while I'm working. And so I think that has helped me, on top of just being an inspiring place with a lot of people from a lot of different places, and a place with a history that's interesting.
Hmm.
I think obviously there's tons of history in Southern California that is interesting, but you can see the history here because the buildings are still here. It kind of builds up around that, where,
Yeah.
California has less of that, you know. Um, but yeah, yeah, yeah. I just
Yeah.
really, really
Yeah, I
like
mean
it here.
that's why the riverboat architecture tours are such a big
Oh
deal and
yeah,
so
yeah.
so much more fun than they sound like they would be
You're
because
right, right.
the skyline of Chicago reads like a history book,
Yes,
basically.
absolutely, absolutely. That's a
And
great
it's
way to
just
put it.
endlessly fascinating. Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is. I've been on that riverboat tour because every time somebody comes here and they're like, "Well, what should we do?" And I'm like, "Well, let's go on the riverboat tour together." I've been on that thing like 3 or 4 times, and every time
Yep.
I love it. Like every time I learn new things, every time, and it's just my favorite. The river's really my favorite part of Chicago, to be honest. And
Hmm.
as far as like a visual piece of Chicago goes, and that tour gives you a great look at everything, and that's where my coffee shop is right along that part of the river, where a lot of
Oh,
those tours
nice.
go by. So,
Hmm.
and that's not my coffee shop, that's one of the coffee shops I frequent, but my coffee shop's Big Shoulders, which is right here 2 minutes away, and it's just my neighborhood. But um yeah, anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. What are you working on these days that has you excited? When you go to these coffee shops, what is it that you're working on?
So the big thing for me in 2024 is trying to launch what I'm calling author coaching school. And author coaching school is essentially this opportunity. I work with a lot of people who have great expertise and great knowledge, great stories, but they have no desire to write themselves or to write a book, and so that's why they hire a ghostwriter. So they have something to offer, but the writing isn't their thing. But I'm really drawn to people who do want to write, who are interested in the same art form. And so I started author coaching school to kind of answer that question. I think initially I thought maybe it would maybe reach the same clientele, but quickly realized that those clients weren't interested in writing a book themselves. And so this is all about coaching people in what it looks like to become an author, to go from aspiring to authoring. I find that there are a huge group of people out there that want to use writing as an art form, but just it isn't, one of the normal art forms that people tend to pursue in their spare time, and certainly isn't what many people pursue as a career. And so I have this unique space where I've helped a lot of authors write books, and I know what it takes. While I'm also in that space of like, I want to write my own books, and I want to, offer my own things. And so I think a lot of this has been, so I launched beta back in the last summer, and now I'm coming into my third run through this thing. And it's just been really, really good. And so this year's all about that. I got a new course launching in February. Just shout out to anybody who's interested, asiocreative.com, ASIO creative.com. You can find more information about me there, and about the author coaching school and what that looks like for people who are really interested in authoring or writing as a means of expressing themselves, maybe even a means of down the road making money and having a career in authoring. But more so, it's for the people who are just like, I would write whether I was getting paid to do it or not, and
Hmm.
I just need the habits to help me go for that. And so,
Yeah.
and
This isn't like I'm gonna teach you how to use Chat GPT to write
oh
you a
no.
book that like corresponds to some business thing so you can look better in front of
Yeah,
prospective clients. Cause there's a lot of that. I have,
there is a lot of
you
that
know,
out there, and this isn't
I
that.
get a targeted ad for that, something like that, pretty much every
Yeah.
day. So, but
No,
yeah,
this
so
is for the people who actually
these
wanna
are for the
write their own.
artisans.
Their own book.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, absolutely. The artists. I mean, knowing your wife and her being an artist, I think if you could think about it through the same lane as somebody who wants to express themselves through an art form, kind of like Emma
Mhm.
expresses herself through an art form, and who pursues a dream of continuing to do that art form more and more in their life as a means of making an income. But also, Emma would probably paint even if it wasn't making her money, right? And I
Mhm.
think because nobody thinks of writing through that kind of lens, there's a lot less writers out there, and there's a lot less people that are pursuing that and seeing if that's something that could be um, just something that fills their heart and gives them a way to express and share themselves and their story. And it's a craft, it's an art form, so you got to learn so much. But you can learn as you go, and there's a lot of great ways to do that. So my author coaching course is really about that, really for those people that are interested in that way, and interested in pursuing, because those are the people I like to work with. No offense to the people. I
Mhm.
know there is a need for people who just, and those are the people I write books for. People
Mhm.
that just need a book as a really, really fancy lead magnet to build credibility, authority, all those things. That's important. There's a space for that. It's actually a great way for people who write to make money, while they're pursuing
Mhm.
their own writing goals. But um, I think for me, writing is something that I do for myself, even though it's not making me a ton of money right now. Like writing does for other people, but when I write for myself, my own stuff isn't making me a ton of money right now. But it's less about that and more about a form of expression, a form of sharing a piece of myself with other people, in hopes that they'll relate with it, in hopes that it'll speak to them in a way that that awakens something in their heart, whether that be challenge, encouragement, or whatever else. Um, yeah, yeah. So that's really my heart for writing, and I'm excited to get to work with more and more people that are like that and enjoy that. So if you want to apply, feel free. I only have a few spots because it's just me, and I'm committed to not making this thing just like a cookie cutter video curriculum. So I really want to have personal connection with people and connection with my authors. I actually read your work. It's not like some of these places are just like, yeah, good enough. Like especially if
Mhm.
you're writing it through Chat GPT. It's like, there's that technology is awesome and it's come a long way, but it's not there yet where it can write you a good book. In my opinion, a good book. It can write you a book.
Yeah.
Um, so anyway, all that to say, yeah, it's built around personal connection. It's not one of these just like you buy a subscription to a bunch of videos or something. It's like, no, you get access to me. We meet every other week throughout the session and go over your work together and stuff. So
Love it. That's
yeah,
awesome. I got one more question for you, one more neighborhood related question, but it's
great.
it's
I'm
kind of
ready.
the grand finale. So
All right.
this bottom line in summary, why should somebody want to move to Chicago? And more specifically, maybe they're already here. Why would they want to live in the River West neighborhood?
Chicago in particular, I think it's a wonderful place, in a confluence of lots of different people from lots of different places that are excited about this place and its opportunity that it provides for community, for fun, for enjoyment. And I think there's so many like-minded people. So if that sounds like this is a great place to find, in some ways, to find your tribe, of people that think like you, talk like you, and maybe not always think like you. Obviously, we can't, but in a lot of
Yeah.
ways are
You
are
don't
moving in
want
a
too much of
similar
that.
direction. No. But I mean, just
I
in
know
in
you
a
mean
lot
though.
of ways, are moving in a similar direction. Um,
Hmm.
so I think Chicago in general, that's what I would say. And it's just a fun place, really fun and exciting city. And then River West, I think for all those reasons that I said, it's actually this like little hidden quiet neighborhood in the midst of this really busy, crazy city. But crazy and busy in the best way. You can get to the crazy, busy, exciting stuff really quickly while kind of feeling a little bit separate from here. Now, that said, everybody drives through our neighborhood to get home from work or to work in the morning or whatever. So, there's lots of traffic
To
that,
avoid, just to avoid
yeah,
Chicago Avenue
yeah,
in the middle
totally,
of the
totally.
day, yeah.
Yeah, so there's Chicago
We
Avenue,
haven't even touched
Milwaukee, the
on
freeway, like all that stuff.
yeah,
So,
it gets so backed up right there. We haven't even
yeah.
talked about the casino going in right down the street from you and how that's gonna impact things.
Yeah,
Who
I
knows, but
mean, it's far enough
yeah.
away from where we are exactly that I don't think it'll
Yeah.
impact us too much, but, some people are concerned about that. There is a casino going into an old, newspaper building, so Tribune building. But
Mhm.
all that to say, I think, there is like a level of, off of those main streets as you break off into these little tiny little enclaves of homes that are in River West. It's very quiet, very family oriented in a weird way, which is fun. Um, and Chicago's right at your fingertips, so I think it's a great place to be. A great, like w- if we could, we'd stay here. All of our time in Chicago. So stay in this
Mhm.
neighborhood.
Drew, awesome stuff. Thank you so much for sharing all of your experience of the city so far with our audience. I know they'll get a lot out of it. Anything else before I just stop record here that you would want to say or highlight or promote? If not, that's fine. We've covered a lot of ground here.
I don't think so. I don't think so. That's it for
Okay.
me.
All right. Right on. Well, yeah, thank you so much for your time.